One of the things that's most fun about being at the V5 or 512 range is that there's so many different things that you can train, and you get a lot out of whatever it is that you stick to.
Hey y'all, welcome back to The Struggle. It's me, Ryan. How are you doing? Guess what? It's my birthday. I'm recording this on my birthday. I got a special cupcake. My wife ordered me special cupcakes from Sprinkles in Los Angeles, where I used to live. If you know Sprinkles, you know. IYKYK. If you know, you know. Doesn't matter. Anyway, got my Sprinkles cupcake. I'm going to take it to the gym. I'm going to eat the cupcake, and then I'm going to have a session fueled by birthday cupcake. I digress. Welcome back to The Struggle and this second episode in our Weekend Warrior series here. The first one popped off. Y'all loved it, and I loved hearing how much you loved it. There's just obviously something cool about hearing from our contemporaries. Though, you know, most of us who are listening to this right now, including myself, who is making this right now, are weekend warriors, amateur climbers who just are trying to have a lot of fun with our climbing, but also level up our performance in the precious little time that we have between all the other things that we're doing as human beings. And I'm just so happy to hear that this is resonating with you all. I've got so many great weekend warriors who have reached out and said, hey, maybe my story would be interesting, or my training thing, or my breaking into XYZ grade. And so I'm going to be featuring a lot of those going forward. I'll tell you at the end of this how you can be featured on the show here if you'd like to be. And today we are hearing from Annette, who I've known actually for quite some time now. She's a Patreon member of The Struggle. Shout out Patreon members. Thank you for your support. And she actually reached out to me a little while back. She climbs at the Red sometimes. We were talking about routes at the Red. And she's also offered to help me out a little bit with this podcast. And so we ping pong emails every once in a while, hop on a call and work on little projects to try to get this show out and accessible to more people. And then I got to talking to her about her recent season. And she shared with me this incredible season she just had where she sent 12 512s in a season, and she had just recently broken into the grade. And I just got to asking her about how that went and what she did, and it was just so interesting to me. I convinced her to come on the show. I kind of had to drag her onto this podcast, to be perfectly honest. But Annette, thank you for coming on and sharing your story, because I think it's going to be incredibly insightful and relatable and applicable, and all the ubbles for those who are listening right now who might be trying to break into 512 or 511 or 513. And that's just quite analytical. She's got some really great systems that she's put forward to help her track her training and her performance, some tools that she makes available to us that I will link in the show notes, but also the things that she did on the training side and on the mindset side to really take her climbing to new levels, as she'll talk about. So we could just get into that right now. I don't think I need to share anything about my climbing. I'll share more about that in the monthly plog episodes. And of course, you can always see what I'm up to on Instagram, because I'm popping over to the gym right now with my cupcake to go try to send 46 moonboard problems. No, scratch that. 426. Yeah, that's going to be more achievable for me right now. Can you imagine if I tried 46 moonboard problems? Oh, and one other thing that I want to shout out, you guys, I'm so psyched about this. I'm going to be emceeing the International Climbers Festival, ICF, in Lander, Wyoming this July. Holy smokes, I'm so excited about this. I'm going to do a live podcast right before the kickoff party, the epic party that kicks off the ICF festival. And then I'm going to be doing a bunch of MC stuff just during the festival itself on Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. The schedule's packed. It's just incredible for us climbers and for the climbing community. They've got clinics with incredible names. They've got a ropes competition at Wild Iris, the art crawl, barbecue, keynote speakers. They always bring in incredible keynote speakers. There's a film festival, so many more. It's all going down this July in Lander, Wyoming. You can get your passes over at climbersfestival.org. I'm going to put a link right there in the show notes for you. If you're going to be out in Lander, let me know. Come say hi. And of course, get in some great climbing with an incredible community of climbers. So I would love to see you there. Swing on over to climbersfestival.org to grab those tickets. All right, let's get ready to break into 512 in a huge way with our weekend warrior, Annette Guo. Are you ready?
Yeah,
Welcome to the struggle. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. Well, look, you and I have known each other for quite some time. You've been helping me out, and we've met up here and at the Red. And of course, your partner was like critical in helping me send my proj, the force.
Yeah.
When I saw him go up and he threw that heel hook up there, I was like, what is that heel hook? And then I used the heel hook and I sent. So we have some good history here, good vibes all around. And for the listener, I'm going to have you introduce yourself in a second. But, you know, Annette and I have been talking for a little while, and she's a supporter and a Patreon member. And you did not want to have this conversation with me for this Weekend Warrior series. But after I've seen this like journey that you've been on over the past, half a year here, you've had some really big breakthroughs. I'll try not to make you squirm too much, but I think you've got some great insights that I've learned from, and I know the listener will as well. But before we jump into all that, actually, I'd love to hear a little bit about who you are. So those who are listening right now, fellow Weekend Warriors, can just get a picture of who is Annette. So I don't know, where do you live? What do you do? Like, tell me a little bit about yourself outside of climbing, and then we'll dive into climbing.
So I am outside of climbing, I guess I've been a mechanical engineer. That was what I did. And I feel like a lot of engineers climb.
Yeah.
But I was like a pretty busy like COO and like co-founder of a startup for a few years. So things were really busy. It was hard to get a lot of time to climb. But I started climbing back in 2019 when I was still in school.
Okay.
Actually got into it because I bought a bike for like $60 from somebody who used to work at the local climbing gym. And so I had to go down there and get it because she had already left and moved to Chicago. So that's how I got to the gym.
Oh, that's great. So you bought a bike, but then you ended up finding a different hobby immediately upon picking up the bike, which is climbing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And then, as you said, you've been very, very busy professionally. You were in school when you started climbing, and then you dove into like startup corporate world, which is insane hours, as I've experienced myself, and probably some people who are listening right now. So was climbing for you just a very small part of your life at that time? It's obviously a much bigger part of your life now.
I think when I started, like it was basically like COVID times, and that's one of the reasons why I started climbing outside a lot more, was because it was one of the only things that you could be doing like safely as a group. And so that was a lot of what my pandemic era was. I also lucked out just with like class at that time. I took a lot of classes like from the crag instead of being there in person, which allowed me to get out a lot more.
Nice.
So that was really kind of convenient and lucky, I guess.
So you would do like a rip on a route or something like that and then join an online class, or was it like asynchronistic type learning?
Yeah, I would have an online class in the background, or like maybe I'd have to take an hour or two break in between the climbing day.
That's great.
To go and hop on during that time period, because there was like good service at the crag.
I love it.
So yeah.
That's a great hack. It's a great hack for fellow Weekend Warriors. See, we're already getting the hack side of this. I'll do this all the time because I do a lot of conference calls for work, for my non-podcast work. And I'll just like put myself on mute and I'll get on the tread wall, or I'll be doing some conditioning or something like that. And I don't usually have good enough reception in most of the crags at the Red that I go to where I could do that. But I'll oftentimes be exercising while kind of quote unquote being very present on a conference call that I definitely don't even need to be on, because it's just mind-numbingly boring. So yeah, good. Yeah. That's good multitasking there. Okay, so then you got psyched though. At some point you got like really psyched on climbing, and tell me about that transition and kind of where you're at now, where climbing fits with your life now.
Yeah, at some point I like really caught the climbing bug, and I started going pretty consistently. Like once I let go of the like beginner skin issues and like soreness after a few months. I don't know if I was going like 2 or 3 times a week, but probably half a year or like a year into it, I was going pretty consistently.
Where are you located?
At that time, I was located in Pittsburgh, and I started outdoor climbing in the New River Gorge.
Okay.
Now I'm based in Kansas City, and I mostly climb in Arkansas, and sometimes at the Red, and occasionally back at the New.
Okay, cool. So then when you're not outside, you've got a local gym that you train at?
Yeah, we've got 7 climbing gyms in the city, actually.
Holy
and most
smokes.
of them are pretty high quality. So it's kind of strange for our size of city, but really convenient for me.
That is absurd because we've got like 1.5 gyms in Louisville and we're 2 hours from the red and you've got 7. That's ridiculous. Send 3 of your gyms our way. You don't need that many gyms in that. Jeez. It's all right. It's just my jealousy coming out. Okay, cool. So now climbing is a pretty big part of your life. You've got a van, you travel around, you train a lot. I think you, from what I've seen at least, you really take your climbing and your training seriously and have progressed really impressively as a climber. Can you just tell us a little bit about, where you're at in your climbing journey, bouldering, sport, grades, anything that, might feel like could give us listeners here a snapshot of where you're at? And then I want to talk about the things that kind of most significantly impacted you with the progression you've had recently.
Yeah. So I've been primarily a sport climber for probably around 4 years or so now. I started outdoor bouldering last fall, so that'll come into the conversation in just a second. I climbed my first 11A, I think let's see.
You got a timeline.
Yeah.
What I love about Annette, you guys, is she's got like a chart and a spreadsheet for everything. It's incredible. And this will come into the conversation too in a little bit because you keep track of your climbing and your workouts in such a really impressive way. So yes, hit me with the timeline.
Yeah. So, okay, I started outdoor climbing like summer 2020. And then it probably took me like another year to do my first 11A outside. And that's partially probably because I started climbing at the New River Gorge, which can be pretty stiff, especially if you're on the smaller side. So that was like my beginning outdoor journey. And this is part of the reason why I'm saying this is because I may have had a really successful year last year, but it definitely took a while for me to get here. And so I just want to show the progression.
Totally.
I did my first 12A in the red in November 2022, so it took another year. That one was like a really weird surprise, and I felt like it was just a fluke because it only took me 2 tries. I was crimped my ride down in the chocolate factory, and then I proceeded to not do another 12A for an entire year before doing like a bunch in 2024 last year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. My first 12A was a climb called Check Your Grip over at Drive By. And that one I did on my second go. And then similarly, it didn't take me a year, but it took me a long time, like months, and also lots of sessions to get my second 12A, which was magnum opus. And so it was such a weird thing. Like the first one, I was like, holy smokes, I'm a 512 climber. And then I was just like Struggleville for like months and months after that. So a parallel experience there, but good for you. I mean, that progression actually, while it sounds like you feel like it was like a little on the slow side, actually, I think is pretty fast. To a year to go 4 letter grades is pretty significant. And it just shows like, I think your dedication to the sport. But then as you teased there, so that was your second 12A happened, did you say it was about a full year after your first, but then this last season in 2024, you like went on a sending spree of 512s.
Yeah, kind of. I think partially in 2023, like the year between like the 512 and like the bunch of them, I wanted to build a pyramid because I didn't send anything between 11A and 12A. So I backfilled like a bunch of B's, C's, and D's.
Did you enter into 2024 with this goal of wanting to do 12 512s, or did that become a goal that kind of manifested later on through the season?
Yeah, my goal was to maybe do my second one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I also had a secondary goal of just sticking with a strength training plan for actually a period of time where I could be consistent and not get injured coming out of 2023, where I just felt like I was getting ripped by injuries the entire year. I probably spent over the half the year like with some sort of tweakiness in my fingers or like shoulders where I just felt like I couldn't try very hard. So yeah, I thought I was going to just, maybe get a couple more 12As. And I was also super busy in the spring from work. I probably was climbing less than I ever had before, where it was down to 1 time a week or maybe no times a week, and surprised myself with a bunch of climbs in the spring that I did. I think 2 or 3 12As. And then in the fall, I spent another stint of being injured that summer and got my like first like serious pulley injury that summer, along with a TFCC thing, a shoulder thing. And so I spent like weeks just rehabbing all those things and just like gently going into the fall, and ended up doing a lot better than I thought I was going to. And so by number 9, I was like, well, it'd be cool if I could get like 12 of these. And so I tried pretty hard for the rest of the year.
Hell yeah, you did. Oh gosh, it's really exciting. And at least from my perspective, I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but like I've done one 513. I don't consider myself a 513 climber. I consider myself a 512 climber because those are the climbs that I, mostly do. And I'm working on becoming a 513 climber. And so for you, you had done those 2 prior 512s, but it feels like 2024, like that was the year that you became a 512 climber. Is that what it felt like to you?
Yeah, pretty much. Even though I've done that many at this point, I still don't feel like a solid 512 climber because there's just so many styles. My style happens to be like pretty bouldery stuff that's like kind of short. And so I'm still working on building a pretty robust pyramid of 12As, like within the 12A grade range, just of like different kinds of climbs. And so I guess on paper I'm solid, but I feel like there's still so much to learn from this grade range.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, me too. I'm right there with you. And I think we all know, those who are listening know that my journey, the road to the pyramid, is as such because I've built a bit of a skyscraper. I've got a pretty fat base at the 12A and a little bit into the 12B range, but C and D are lagging behind, woefully lagging behind. And so what does that pyramid look like for you? You've done a bunch of 12s now. Are they all 12As?
Yeah, I've done, I think, 12As or so, and then 1 A/B, and I just did my first 12C this last weekend.
Yes! Let's go!
So
congratulations.
Yeah, it's still skyscrapery though, because I haven't really done many 11Cs or Ds, but maybe I'll just make it up in the 12A through C region instead.
Yeah, I mean, those mid-11s are now warm-ups for the things that you're working on, so you'll build out that pyramid naturally. Well, huge congratulations on the 12C. Where was that?
It's at the ranch, Horseshoe Canyon Ranch in Arkansas, which is an area that's pretty known for just like one hard boulder problem somewhere on the route, usually at the bottom. And then like the rest of the climbing is pretty easy. So the climb that I recently did, it's called Corn Grinder Free, I guess, because there's also like a start if you skip the boulder problem at the bottom. It's probably V5/6 into an 11B at the end, which works out because I've been bouldering a lot. I sent my first V5, 6, and 2 7s in the last couple months.
Let's go.
So bouldering is currently my thing right now, I guess.
Yes, you're on the road to V8. Just you're like 5 exits ahead of me. I need to catch up. I need to get some gas in my Prius or a bigger engine. Oh, that's so awesome, Annette. Well, God, congratulations. Okay, so we've got so much to unpack here. I really wanted to understand what you felt had the most impact on what looks like from kind of a snapshot, like this explosion in performance, like 2024 and now a little bit into 2025 has just been this like renaissance year for you, if you will. But to your earlier point, there was just a lot of groundwork that you were putting in over years to get to that. But certainly something happened here. Something happened where you were surprising yourself and putting down these 512s maybe faster than you had expected, to the point where you set this fairly audacious goal of 12 12s in the year, which I don't think I've even done, although I don't keep track as well as you do. I don't have the spreadsheet nerdery, but I want to talk about that in a bit. But what do you think, if we're looking at just kind of training, nutrition, tactics, mental game, the usual struggle pillars here, what do you think had the most impact on that season that you just had?
I think part of it is strength training, like capacity, and then mental training and the people around you. It's like 4 main things, I guess. Okay, so I hadn't really strength trained before the beginning of 2024, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I was getting injured so much. And I think I was just basically pushing my body beyond what my large muscle groups were capable of doing. And not enough of the rest of my body, like my tension and my core and my legs, were taking on the work that my fingers and shoulders were like compensating for.
Yeah.
So I actually met with my friend Colin, or Lifts McGee on Instagram.
We love Colin. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I actually met him at the new, like quite a long time ago, at this route called Satisfaction Guaranteed, which is one of the best like 5'11", low 5'11s at the new.
Cool.
But I had a conversation with him early on, basically asking him why I was getting hurt so much and how to improve that. And he really gave me a wake-up call of, hey, you really need to get on strength training, and you've never been consistent with that before, which I told him like I had lifted a little bit, and he was like, yeah, you haven't really been consistent. So I didn't get to start the strength training probably until June, maybe. I wanted to start in January, but work really got in the way for several months, as it does for many of us.
Totally.
And so he put me on just like a really basic strength training program. I think it was like the 8-week program or something like that, where I like did deadlifts. I did stuff that made my like push stronger for my arms, which I was proud of as a weakness before that. I was like, yeah, I can't mantle. But yeah, I started incorporating all those things, did a lot more core. And what I found over the course of doing all that was several months later, I had been working on my endurance and everything throughout this time period, but I started feeling less pumped on routes because I didn't need as much like finger and like shoulder endurance, because the rest of my body was like taking that on at that point. And so doing that, plus just like different things like climbing faster, just helped me compensate for endurance that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think both of those things complement each other. I feel like if you're not needing to use your forearm flexor muscles as much because you're putting more on these other muscles in your body, and you're climbing faster, so you're not like holding these holds for as long, even if you haven't quote unquote built more endurance, you're essentially just requiring less endurance. So it's going to feel like you've built more endurance as a result. So let me just peel back a little bit on the kind of conditioning side, the strength training side of that, because you said it was like a pretty basic program. And for those who are listening who maybe haven't done any of this, I think it'd be good to understand. And Colin, I think, has even a free program that he has available for people to do. And I've done an interview with him. We did a pro clinic with Colin and Jesse Firestone from Camp 4 where we talk through straight training. So you all can go reference that as well if you want to get like super nerdy. We don't have to go like crazy detailed, but you said you were doing some deadlift, some things for your pushing muscles. So was that like bench press or shoulder press or something like that?
Yeah, I did just like benching and like landmine presses and a bunch of other stuff in that program. It wasn't super complex, and it was just something that I started doing like an hour before my actual climbing session. And I found that it didn't take away too much from my climbing performance. And like doing it at the beginning, I would make sure that I actually would get it done instead of climbing and being like, oh, I don't know if I can get in the gym right now. So
yeah, totally. You just like had to eat your vegetables before you could go have some fun on some boulders. And I find that as well. I also find as long as I'm not lifting too hard, it does serve as a pretty good like full body warm up. There's nothing miraculous here, but just incorporating some of the basic conditioning was helping to build up just overall body strength and tension so that when you got on the wall, you relied less on your smaller muscles, which of course is your fingers. And that's something that I'm continually trying to work on myself. And that can be done through technique and various other important ways as a climber as well. It doesn't just have to be getting stronger, but you went from not doing any of that to doing a bit of that. The dividends paid off quite quickly. And you also identified core tension and how you feel improved tension on the wall was also helping to alleviate a lot of that pump.
I think it was mostly the deadlifting. I had never deadlifted before, but like as soon as I did, all of a sudden I like had solid abs. It was weird. One day I like just poked my stomach and was really surprised by just how much tension there was there. And I looked at James, I was like, what is this? Have I had this before? So I think it was mostly the deadlifting for the tension part of things. And just like having not really done that before, I think it just like really filled a gap that I didn't know that I had.
I love the deadlift, so I'm psyched. I'm psyched that worked for you. Okay, so on the strength side, you went from doing nothing to doing a little, and that paid off huge, which is really cool. There's some low-hanging fruit there. And then I want to talk about some other things that you felt contributed in a really significant way here to this performance season that you had, like solidly placing you in the 512s. And you talked about some tactics. So you talked about moving faster, and you've talked about mental game. You mentioned that you had some like really good gym sessions where you were linking harder boulders, and I think essentially giving you confidence to move faster through some crux sequences. And you also talked about like the people, like kind of the mental side of the people that are around you. So I want to unpack all of those. Maybe the next thing we can talk about is the speed and maybe how you trained yourself to climb a little bit faster. And that may come into some of the mental side as well.
Sure, yeah. So mental game, I think, has always been sort of a weakness for me. I've always been really nervous to tie in and try to send something. And this is probably a feeling that a lot of people can relate to, but I would self-sabotage a lot and just tell myself that I couldn't do it, or just like mess up because I was like overthinking and not focusing on the actual moves when I was trying to send something. So one of the things that I did was just try to link boulders in the gym and turn it into basically whatever my route was. What I ended up also doing was adding in an element of just forcing myself to get going and climbing it really fast. So two things that are kind of going on there. Having a partner that is way stronger than me, that usually hangs the draws and just goes first every time, is really helpful. But it also started to take away from like my own movement patterns because I would know what to do.
Right.
So I kind of tried to train up like my ability to on-site and move fast in the gym. I primarily boulder, by the way. I almost never rope climb unless it's outside, lately at least. So I would do like circuits around the gym, V3 or so, and I would just do it kind of comp style where you turn away from it and then you just look at the boulder and then you just go and do it. And then I would rest after that. But that slowly started to chip away at my feeling of I'm not ready to go and do this boulder problem on the route right now. So that was very helpful. And then also like being able to separately do links of a V3, 4, 3 again, and surprising myself with the fact that I was capable of doing that really boosted my confidence into thinking that I could actually make links on my projects outdoors. Because that was like a goal that I had that felt really far away. I was like, no way I can link these three problems. Like maybe I'll have to work up from V3 like 2-1 or something like that. But once I actually started trying it, I found that I could actually do it. And that just really helped me think that I could do that outside on rock too.
All right, y'all, I just want to take a quick second here to tell you about some voodoo magic chalk that I've tried out recently. It's by Rungni. You guys know Rungni. It's Magnus Mitbo's company. They've been supporting this show for a really long time now, which I love. Thank you, Rungni. But this chalk that they just came out with, I don't even know if you can call it chalk. It's called Maglock, and it's like chalk. It's a super expensive type of chalk for a bag of it, but you only use a teaspoon. And it goes on your clean hands, and you rub it around on your clean hands, and that's kind of like your magic little base layer. I tested this stuff out with Emil Abrahamson when we were out in Portland shooting some videos together. And we did like a side-by-side test hanging from a giant, nasty sloper in the gym. And by far, when we put the mag lock on first and then used like regular mag dust afterwards, we hung way longer than when we were just using regular chalk. So like if you've got a project and you're like, look, I need that extra little edge to level up and send this thing, check out the mag lock. It's just wild how it feels and how it works. I don't need to sell it. Just try it and you'll see the difference. You can use code STRUGGLE and get 10% off pretty much everything over at Rungny. You can get a bundle, which will score you some free shipping. And again, if you use that code STRUGGLE over at rungny.com, that also helps me to continue to make these shows that you're listening to. All right, y'all, just want to take a quick second here to tell you how I'm staying healthy and taking care of myself as I'm now pushing my body to the hardest limits I've ever pushed it as a rock climber. And the way that I'm fueling these gains that I'm working so hard to get is with PhysiVantage Nutrition. You all know PhysiVantage. They've been a sponsor of the show since the very first episode, and I've been a paying customer of PhysiVantage since long before there was ever a podcast. And why is that, Ryan? Why am I buying PhysiVantage products? Well, it's because they work. They're designed by climbers for climbers to help us climb our best. Every single day, I'm taking their supercharged collagen before I do like a little light fingerboard workout, like the Abrahangs that I've talked about here on this show, or before I go climbing or go to the gym. And I'm also fueling up either before or after a workout with one of their protein powders. It's like my sweet treat that I have. And the most important thing, as I mentioned, is that it works. Most coaches and doctors and dietitians are going to tell you that you should probably take in about a gram of protein per body weight every single day if you're an athlete and you're trying to fuel your gains. So for me, 155 grams of protein is a lot of protein in a day. And I love a whole foods diet, but I have to supplement in order to hit that goal. And I do it by using PhysiVantage. Hit that link right there in your show notes and you'll get 15% off pretty much everything over at the PhysiVantage store, or use code STRUGGLE15 at checkout to get that discount, and let's get after it. I often have conversations with climbers at the crag or on the show even about fears, like around mindset, like fear of falling, fear of failure are kind of like the two biggest pillars. And oftentimes with more amateur beginner climbers, a fear of falling really comes into play. It sounds like for you, maybe the more limiting factor, and I don't even know if fear of failure is the right word there. It was like essentially a lack of confidence. You didn't believe that you were maybe ready or capable of doing these links or making the progress that then having these gym sessions and essentially artificially forcing yourself to climb fast or do these hard link ups that then translated out on rock. You were obviously building fitness while you were doing that as well, but there was like some sort of mental shift that was happening while you were pushing yourself through these kind of artificial exercises, if you will, at the gym that then built a confidence in yourself that translated to the routes when you got out to them.
Yeah, I think one really big theme throughout everything that happened for me in the past year is if you're not good at something yet, or you don't think you can do something yet, just start trying it. And if you get past the initial hump of it being a new thing, you might actually find that it's a lot easier than you initially thought. And you can then proceed to like train that thing and get really good at it in a short period of time. I feel like that's one of the things that's most fun about being at the like V5 or 512 range is that there's so many different things that you can train, and you get a lot out of whatever it is that you stick to, because it's like the low-hanging fruit. Like you don't have to be super specific, like doing almost anything and being targeted and specific about it will help you improve a lot.
Yeah, I like the way you frame that too, because sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, man, I'm like pretty bad at a lot of things, but you're like, hey, I could focus in on any one of these things and just get a lot better. So that's a good way of framing that. And it's so true. And that's what's been working for you is you've really committed to focusing in on certain aspects and trying to measurably improve those aspects before you move to something else. Mm-hmm. And actually that brings up this thing that you mentioned to me that I want to touch on, and we can come back to the other things that help you break into this solid 512 grade. But you mentioned to me that you've done an assessment like for years. Like I think it's a self-assessment that Eric Hurst has laid out. And so could you tell us a little bit about that? What are you assessing and how long have you been doing it and what patterns did you identify? Because maybe that's what those of us who maybe aren't quite sure what thing to zero in on to find these low-hanging fruit gains like you did, maybe that's a tool that we could use as well to help just even know where to start.
Yeah. So I've been taking Eric Hurst's training for climbing assessment since 2021. I try to do it like every single time I feel like there's a shift in my climbing and just see what has changed. And that book was like the first training book that I got for figuring out how to train myself.
Yeah, it's a great one.
So the assessment goes through 3 different categories. It talks about like mental, technique, and tactics, and then like physical strengths. And I've always scored on the low end for mental, not because I'm like super scared to fall all the time, but I'm just, like we mentioned earlier, I was like kind of afraid to fail or not very confident when it came to doing like the hard parts of climbs.
Yeah.
So yeah, over time, like everything has kind of pushed upwards, but my mental category has slowly pushed from 25 to like 38 or so. And it's like out of 40 for each category, I guess.
That's huge.
So I wouldn't say I have an amazing mental game or anything like that, but I definitely feel a lot better about it than I used to. And I think my physical and my technique and tactics type things have also improved over the years as I've gotten like stronger and like I've improved on like different techniques and things like that. But yeah, that's definitely where I saw the biggest difference in where things were improving year over year.
I've experienced that myself, and I imagine a lot of people listening have as well, or if you haven't, there's a real opportunity there on the mental side. For me, it was fear of falling, but I still fear of failure and other things, come into play. You never really conquer the mental game. It's just like, how am I on this day? And am I over time tracking in the right direction like you just showed you were with your assessments that you've been doing over the years?
And then as I try harder things, like my mental game will probably go down again once I readjust to like where I'm at now.
We can change things, somewhat fast with our fitness and with our strength if we haven't done anything like you with the conditioning that Colin helped you to map out. But mental game is even a faster switch that we can flip. If we're really gripped above a bolt, then there's no amount of capacity training we're going to be able to do that's going to help us climb that route better or faster than if we just tackled a fear of falling or whatever it might be that's holding us back on the mental side. So there's so much opportunity there. And you mentioned another thing that I think falls into this bucket, which was choosing people that you climb with or surrounding yourself with people that I think, help rather than hinder the mental side of your climbing. Can you share a bit on that as well?
Yeah. I don't remember when this was. I think it was a conversation you had with Tom Randall maybe recently, but you guys talked about people who are weak for the grade and like getting to know what they're doing that helps them be able to climb that grade even though they're weak for the grade. I've always identified as that kind of person and basically tried to milk like everything I possibly could out of like my project tactics and just anything in that realm that wouldn't just be actual strength before I like focused on the other stuff. So yeah, talking about like just mindset and climbing with friends, I have been climbing with women who are around my size for a couple years now. And I currently have a really great like girl crew of just like 3 girls who are like 5'3" at my gym. We climb around the same level. We do not have similar styles at all. And so just like being exposed to like what the other people in our group can do and knowing that I'm around the same size just makes me realize like how much more there is to learn about movement. And I get really psyched to try different movement patterns that they are working on. I'm psyched to try climbs with them. And also just like pushing each other outside on rock just feels a lot more reasonable when I feel like it's coming from somebody who is in a similar place as me. I think we all really surprise each other with what the other girls in the group can do. And it just really motivates us all to all get better together.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I think that really underscores something that I've experienced over the years as well, which is, finding a stoked, positive crew that works hard. And in my case, all of them are stronger climbers than me. I can find that motivating. I learn a lot from them. And the positivity for me is really key. I really thrive on like a supportive belay and a lot of positivity and stoke. And I don't love, I mean, there's always jokes and that kind of thing, but I don't love like a lot of negative jokes. Oh man, you sucked at that or whatever. Usually I'm too hard on myself and people remind me, like I'm kind of self-deprecating, but people remind me like, no, you did well. Let's enjoy that. Let's enjoy the progress that you made. And it just makes a huge difference because climbing's already an outlet for most of us. We're not really paying the bills with it. So we want to be able to enjoy it, even if we are pushing ourselves hard. And so you found that crew that it sounds like they're pretty hard charging and you're hard charging. And then when you get out to the crag, are you with the same people? I mean, I know you go out with James quite a bit, but is there also a local outdoor crew that you tend to perform well with?
Yeah, that basically is my outdoor crew. We like train inside together and we also go outside together. 2 of them boulders, so they're like a whole different breed than I am. And then one of them sport climbs. But we're all, I think, very supportive of each other. I don't need support all the time. I apparently need like some bullying and a little bit of a push at times to force myself to actually try harder. So they definitely give me a little bit of both.
It's great. It's great that you know what you respond to. There's a guy that I climb with who he wants like dead silence when he's climbing. He hates support. He just doesn't, if you get to a point, I'm like, you're looking good or whatever. He's like, no, I don't want to hear it. So it's important to know what you like and what you respond to and then be able to communicate that to your group. Yeah, really cool. And so, a lot of this that I'm taking away from this conversation here is this explosion, if you will, into the 512s is just the result of very thoughtful, dedicated work across a variety of different spokes in the wheel. And as you leveled up one, you moved on to another and we're parallel pathing some of these, but you've really found this critical mass of factors that have helped you to break through into this grade. And one of the ones that we haven't touched on yet that I have to explore is how analytical you are with your climbing and tracking your workouts, your progress. We touched a little bit on the assessment there, but you sent me this spreadsheet it's just a snapshot of a spreadsheet of climbs and how you track your performance and assess different factors on your climbs. So tell me just about, in general, kind of what your training and performance philosophy is with regard to keeping track. And then maybe we can dive into some of those systems a little bit.
So when I started climbing, it didn't really look like much beyond just I tried to climb as many pitches as I could every single day, try harder climbs whenever I had the opportunity to do so. I've actually tracked basically every climb I've ever done on Mountain Project outside, like throughout the duration of my outdoor climbing career. And it's really helpful to have that data to just know like when I was doing stuff, like how I was feeling on that route that day and what changed between now and then based on like how I felt in my body or like different things that I felt were weaknesses.
Right.
So that's how I started out. I think I even went as far as like adding a route on Mountain Project that I climbed in Spain just because I needed to dig it.
Yes.
So I made a iPad topo for that. But I track everything in this kind of spreadsheet that I have, and over the years it's evolved. When I first started, I was like tracking way too many things and found it to be kind of overwhelming. But as like my training age grows, I kind of understand what the important things for me to track are. And so I basically track like the assessment, different projects that I'm currently working on. Right now, I also have a macro cycle type thing where I plan out different sections of the year and like what I'm going to focus on. And then I also do have a diary of sorts for each session that I talk about like what I did and how things went and if I achieved anything that's worth noting down. So all that stuff, I'm starting to get into like finger training again and recording stuff around that. But that is most of what's in my tracker here.
It's so nerdy. Like it really tickles this part of my brain because it's like, it's color coded and they're really soft, gentle, beautiful colors. I'm looking at your spreadsheet here that's for tracking routes. Mm-hmm. And so you've got the name of the route, the month, the location, and then these next columns I really like. The type of the route, so at least this looks like it's a toggle that you use, low crux, high crux, power endurance. You're essentially categorizing like what type of sport climb it is.
Yeah.
You have a category for rests. Why do you have a category for rests?
Because I didn't have a lot of endurance for a long time. And so I need some like on-ramp rests. And I was curious as to like how the different like 512s I did broke down in terms of that. So that's why I was tracking that metric.
Well, I'm looking at this category right now, and here's a couple routes that I already know I love. 1976, 2 lay down rests. Let's go. Oh my God. 1 lay down rest is the best. 2? Now we're talking.
The route is not very long either.
2 lay down rests in a short route? This is my kind of route. It must be hard movement though.
That's why I said earlier too that like I'm still building this pyramid at 512s. Like even though the movement was really hard, like I'm still working on like breaking out of things that are my style, like just bouldering and like with a lot of rests. So one of the routes I've been working on this spring is Chainsaw Massacre, which I still haven't sent yet.
Oof.
But that's like a complete different style from like things I've been trying to do in the past. And I'm trying to not give myself those training wheels of like having rests where I can breathe and reset, and just trying to like be more well-rounded in terms of what I'm trying to send.
Yeah. Good for you. I was on Chainsaw yesterday. It was the second time only I've ever been on it. God, that thing's hard. But I agree. It just forces fast movement, long movement, just holding it together repetitively on power endurance, kind of decent holds, but nothing great, nothing terrible. Yeah, that's a good one. I think that route's going to teach me a lot as I spend more time over there at Undertow. The other categories that you have here, just so I can kind of finish the thought on this spreadsheet, is number of sessions, number of attempts, the first month that you tried the route, and then you track the conditions as well. So I guess that gives you just a sense on whether you can send in subpar conditions or whether you needed ideal conditions.
Yeah, apparently I can send in kind of horrible conditions. So that's been something interesting that a lot of people I think are really focused on. And I've just started to accept that, even if it's not a good day, I still got to go out there and try, especially because a lot of the routes that I'm trying are not super close to me. And if you're like from out of town, you just gotta make do with what you got.
Yeah, I really like that. I can get hung up with conditions a lot. And when I look back, some of my proud sends were in too hot, too humid, conditions where like the sun was blasting, but I still sent. So I like that you're tracking that. You have that visual reminder where it's like, oh, I don't need everything to align in order to perform. I'm capable of working through some subpar conditions. Yeah, that's cool. Is this like a Google spreadsheet? Do you think there's like a template that you could share with me and I could link it in the show notes? So if people wanted to use this or use a version of this, they could have a starting point, like a visual representation of it?
Yeah, I could probably like turn it into a template. I use a different thing to track like current climbs I'm working on and like ones in the past. So I've got that format that you were just talking about, and then the ones that I'm currently working on like for the year, I basically just track like where I'm at progress-wise, attempts, like any relevant beta links that I'm trying. So yeah, I'm happy to share that with whoever wants to use that kind of format for themselves.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I'll put some links in the show notes here once Annette gives me some sort of downloadable template or open source type thing, and y'all can rework it for what tickles your brain. But just the color schemes and the drop-down menus and all of this, I'm really excited about it. I track everything in my paper journal. I've got like the 5-year performance journal, and I really like the reflective nature of that, so I can see year over year where my mind was at and all of that. But there's something very organized and like immediately searchable about this kind of spreadsheet. So I think I'm going to toy around with that as well. I appreciate you sharing.
I've been struggling with that a little bit because I have the 5-year journal now, and I just write down everything in both because I also want to be able to search it later.
Yeah. It's like, it's redundant, but it's going to be, ultimately there's going to be utility for both, but it just means doing a little bit more logging. But I'm the same way. Like I use the Crimped app to train, but I also have my force board, force gauge, and I've got my paper journal. And then when I'm working with a coach, I'm doing something in some Google Doc for them. I mean, it's like a little bit of probably admin overkill, but they each have their utility, and at different times they really serve their purpose. So if you find a more streamlined system, please let me know, but I appreciate you sharing these as well.
I also use like several different apps for like different things. There's just like
Right.
different aspects of climbing, and they're best tracked on like different things.
Yeah,
So.
totally. Well, I'm just like so impressed with how focused and specific you've been able to get for yourself. You know what you respond to, you know what's paying off, and especially the consistency behind it all. It seems like the secret to sending 512 consistently is consistency, and probably not a big surprise there, but just a lot of really practical insights that you've shared in this. I'm curious, as we kind of wrap up this and you start to look forward, as I know you're always in the planning phase, you just sent 12C. Awesome. You sent a load of 12As, but I know you want to backfill more. But what's on the horizon for you? What are you going to set your sights on for later this year and beyond?
I'm putting the bouldering on the back burner for a bit, first of all. I might do some like fun 5s and 6s, but not much of that. I recently climbed a couple routes at the Red that I think I'm going to enjoy working on.
Cool.
So Mirage at Solarium I thought was super cool and like very much my style. I also got to the top of 13 for the first time. I tried Snooker,
Wow.
which I found really inspiring for me. So those are 2 routes that I'm going to be working on. And like one of the things that I've been doing is I'm trying to be well-rounded, but I'm also like not unhappy that I have a skill set that happens to suit me, and I'm going to use that as much as I can. So I'm going to do like crimpy routes to the moon and not do like slopey stuff that makes me unhappy for now when it comes to harder stuff. And I've also just dialed a lot on the whole projecting process at this point, like over the course of the last year, that I'm excited to take to climbs with harder grades, I guess.
Yeah. So cool to see, Annette. Yeah, I mean, climbing's so interesting. We do the thing and then we just bump up to the next thing, and then the process continues. And
Yeah.
Congratulations on everything that you're doing. And thanks for sharing your journey with us reluctantly. Thank you for letting me pull you onto the show here. There's such valuable takeaways for me, for those who are listening, whatever grade you're trying to break into. You're trying to break into 510 or 514. What you just shared, I think, is applicable across so many different ways. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. I think overall, like, if you're trying to break into 512, just think a lot about what the different aspects of climbing and really evaluate whether or not something is a weakness for you, and fill in as much of that as you can, because climbing that grade requires you to work on like a bunch of different things. And it may take time to bring everything kind of up to par, but it might take less time than you think. And things that you think maybe are your weaknesses maybe are not actually what's holding you back. And just really explore like all the different things that you could be doing that aren't just like training finger strength or training like strong shoulders, like doing like tactic related things, and having a good group of friends also like really contributes to your success in climbing those grades, I think.
Yeah, such valuable words, such a real perspective. I think that especially for weekend warriors, where we're just time crunched, we often default to like, oh, let me just get stronger or fitter. And I do that too, even though I have all of these insightful conversations with so many incredible climbers and coaches who say, no, it's probably not that's holding you back. So really nice, gentle reminder for all of us to do that self-assessment. And if you're blind to yourself, then have your friends assess you. If you got that nice crew that you trust. Tom Randall's talked about that, where it's like, hey, everybody just write down on a piece of paper where you think I'm excelling and where you think I've got some areas for improvement, and maybe that'll help you to identify the next thing that you put that focused energy towards for 6 weeks or 8 weeks like Annette did.
Yeah, I think also for this kind of grade range, just learning to fall in love with all different kinds of climbing movement is super helpful. Pigeonholing yourself into just one aspect of your climbing, like maybe you're in love with steep climbing, but you don't like other things, or you're in love with slab, but you can't do overhangs. Just becoming more well-rounded and learning like different movement patterns. Are you an open hip or closed hip climber? Learn how to do both. Or are you like really good at getting through everything with a drop knee, like me? Can you do the climbs in a different way that like maybe one day you won't be able to cheat through it with the drop knee, but if you learn how to do it the other ways, you will be able to do those kinds of movements even faster outside.
Any other little points of wisdom while we wrap up and you explode through 512s and into the 513s in the coming year?
Don't hold your breath. It won't be that quick. If you're trying to climb the 512 outside and you're not already spending a ton of time outside or trying actual 512s, that's probably something that you should be doing. Like just racking up tons of outdoor hours, getting used to like moving on rock, because it's totally different from inside in terms of like how you're finding what the movement is to do. I think those things are both really helpful. I didn't say that. That's something that I do a lot because that's like not a weakness of mine. But I think it's really helpful to have lots of outdoor time and actually get on a variety of different climbs of the grade that you're trying to do. So you can find ones that you like and just have a lot of experience on like what that grade feels like.
That's one of the things that I've consciously shifted recently. And the first goal that I've now put down in my journal every month on my goal page, it used to be like a grade or whatever. And now it's just number of days outside. There's no qualifiers about what I'm getting on or how hard it has to be. It's just, did I get 4 days outside this month or 5 days or whatever the goal is? And some days will be fun, light days with my kids. And some days will be like hard charging, slamming my knuckles against the wall on a project. But the goal is the goal. The goal is to just be outside that many days. And that's made a huge difference for me. So yeah, what a great parting point, Annette. Let's get outside. Let's have some fun. I hope to see you at the Red this fall. Let's get on some projects together. You and I are climbing the same grade, so let's go project something.
Maybe we'll finally both send Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh my God. That's the mega proj. Let's do it. All right, this wraps up this stoked and insightful Weekend Warrior conversation with Annette. Annette, thank you so much. Thanks for pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and joining us here on the pod. For those of you who are listening, I hope you got a lot out of this. I'm going to link to Annette's spreadsheet wizardry nerdery in the show notes if you want to take a look at that and maybe adapt some of those systems for your own training and performance logging. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me and maybe I'll connect you with Annette. I don't know. She's pretty busy. Just reach out to me. I'm busy too. Look, we're all busy, but if you're confused by anything or if you have any thoughts, just find this post on Instagram and pop your questions in there or reach out to me on Patreon. There's a free tier on Patreon as well. So if you can't afford to support the pod every month, I totally understand. Maybe you can in the future or whatever. I really appreciate whatever support I can get. Annette is a Patreon member. So thank you, Annette, not only for joining the pod, but also for supporting the pod. How cool is that? In any case, there's a free tier, so you can join that way and send me DMs straight through the Patreon app. Okay, what else did I want to talk about on this outro? Oh, ICF, International Climbers Festival. I'm going to be hosting a live podcast there and also doing some MC stuff all weekend. Come on out to Lander and hang out. That link is right there in your show notes to grab your passes for the festival. Oh man, I'm so psyched. I just cannot wait to get out there. I'm bringing the whole family. It's making a family event out of it. Going to be climbing, partying, hosting, hanging out. See you there. And if you are a weekend warrior and want to share your story here on The Struggle, there's a little form that you can fill out. It's just like, it takes like 5 minutes, just kind of shares a little bit about you as a person and a climber. And the link to that form is in Patreon. So another good reason to, swing on over to Patreon and grab yourself a free trial or just join under the free tier. And there's a form in there called Weekend Warrior. Just like scroll back through the past posts and you can fill out that form and I'll reach out to you in the future. I've got a few of these lined up already, but I'm always looking for more. I think I'm going to just keep this series going for like a long time. It's been so fun to do. I love connecting with you all. And I'm just getting great feedback that from the community here that these are really useful conversations. So yeah, I'm going to keep this going. If you want to share your story, you can fill out that form and I'll get back to you when it's time to record more of these. And in the meantime, I hope your training and your climbing are going great. And now it's time to roll some music and some credits and I'll see you next week.